What happened in Cincinnati didn't look like a normal tennis story. It looked like a warning to the entire sport. Before Eala had even stepped onto the court, demand around her appearance was already exploding. Tickets reportedly jumped from around $275 toward $470, while resale prices climbed even higher, yet the seats continued disappearing. That raised a question nobody could ignore. What exactly was causing thousands of people to spend this kind of money on a 21-year-old tennis player? The answer was sitting in the stands long before the first ball was struck. Filipino fans. Cincinnati had already been expecting a massive tournament, but Eala brought something completely different. Her supporters weren't simply casual spectators looking for a tennis match. They were traveling across states, carrying Philippine flags, wearing shirts, organizing meetups, and treating her matches like major national events. Some fans reportedly rearranged entire trips around her schedule, while others were willing to drive for hours just to see her play in person. That kind of commitment changes the economics of a tournament because the attraction isn't limited to whether she reaches the final. The attraction is Eala herself. And this wasn't completely new. Her fanbase had already made noise in other cities, showing tournament organizers that wherever she appears, a large Filipino crowd can follow. In Washington, Toronto, and other stops, the atmosphere around her matches became noticeably different. Fans who had barely followed professional tennis before were suddenly learning rankings, studying draws, buying tickets, and planning their weekends around one player. That is what makes the Cincinnati situation so interesting. Eala wasn't merely bringing existing tennis fans into the building. She was pulling in people who may never have cared about tennis at all. Even the biggest names in the sport have noticed the shift. Coco Gauff has spoken positively about Eala bringing a new demographic to the WTA, and that point matters far beyond one compliment. Professional tennis has spent years trying to expand its audience, especially among younger and more diverse communities. Yet Eala appears to be doing something naturally that marketing campaigns struggle to manufacture. Her supporters don't just watch her, they identify with her journey. That is why the ticket numbers became such a powerful symbol. If the reported price increases and sellouts hold up, Cincinnati wasn't simply selling seats to a popular match. It was discovering the commercial power of a fan base that had been waiting for someone to rally around. And once tournament executives realized how strong that demand was, another question became impossible to avoid. If Eala can create this kind of frenzy before playing a single point, what happens when the biggest tournaments in the world start competing for her audience? That's where the story gets even bigger. The most interesting reaction wasn't coming from the fans. It was coming from the people running the tournament. Bob Moran had already seen some of the biggest names in tennis walk through Cincinnati, but the response surrounding Eala was forcing organizers to look at their own event differently. The Cincinnati Open had built a massive operation designed to handle hundreds of thousands of spectators. Yet reports of Eala-driven demand were creating a completely different problem. How do you accommodate a fan base that seems willing to travel almost anywhere to see her? That question became impossible to ignore when stories started circulating about supporters organizing trips specifically around her matches. One group of friends reportedly planned a reunion around traveling to Ohio, while another fan allegedly watched Eala in Toronto and then drove roughly 8 hours to Cincinnati rather than risk missing another appearance. Whether every number being discussed online holds up or not, the larger trend is undeniable. Her supporters are behaving less like ordinary spectators and more like a traveling community. And that changes everything for tournament executives. A traditional tennis star can bring attention when she reaches the later rounds. Eala's appeal appears to begin before the result is even known. That distinction is enormous. If fans buy tickets because they want to see a particular player regardless of whether she wins or loses, then her commercial value becomes less dependent on the draw. Suddenly, sponsors have another reason to watch her, tournaments have another reason to promote her, and broadcasters have another reason to build coverage around her. The most powerful part is that Eala herself doesn't appear to be chasing this frenzy. She has repeatedly focused on appreciating the Filipino supporters and growing the sport, while the crowd around her keeps getting louder. In city after city, those fans have created an atmosphere that other players notice immediately. Jessica Pegula has described the feeling of playing in front of Eala's supporters, while Belinda Bencic compared the intensity to the kind of pressure associated with Serena Williams matches. Think about what that means. Those comparisons aren't just about noise. They show that opponents can actually feel the presence of Eala's audience during a match. And once a player's fan base starts affecting the atmosphere for everyone else on court, the story has moved beyond simple popularity. It becomes part of the competition itself. Cincinnati may have been expecting another successful tournament, but Eala's arrival introduced a variable organizers couldn't simply predict from rankings or previous results. Her fans had already proven they would travel, spend, organize, and show up. Now the tennis establishment had to figure out what happens when that demand keeps growing. Because if Cincinnati was the warning, the next tournaments could be the real test. The numbers are one thing, but the scenes inside the stadium tell a much bigger story. When Eala plays, the crowd doesn't always behave like a traditional tennis audience. Philippine flags appear throughout the stands, chants break out, and supporters react to every point with the energy you would normally expect from a major basketball game. That difference has caught the attention of players because suddenly an ordinary tournament session can feel like a completely different event. In Toronto, reports said organizers had to move Eala to a larger court after the original seating capacity could not handle the expected crowd. Whether every reported ticket figure is exact or not, the message was clear. Demand around her had outgrown the original expectations. And then there was the viral imagery. Fans arriving in Filipino colors, groups traveling together, and even unusual superfan moments that turned into social media content. These aren't just random spectators buying a seat. They're creating an identity around the experience. That matters because tennis has traditionally depended heavily on established stars and deep tournament runs to generate excitement. Eala is showing another possibility. A player can become a reason to attend before she has won a Grand Slam title or reached the biggest stage of her career. Her supporters see her rise as something personal. For Filipino communities living far from home, watching a player represent the Philippines on an international stage can feel like a connection to something familiar. That's why the energy follows her from city to city. The same flags that appeared in one tournament can suddenly show up hundreds or thousands of miles away at the next. And the impact doesn't stop with Filipino fans. New viewers are being introduced to women's tennis simply because Eala gives them someone to care about. That could be one of the most important parts of this entire story. If even a fraction of those first-time viewers stay interested in tennis after discovering her, the WTA gains something far more valuable than one sold-out session. It gains new fans. But there's another side to this explosion that tournament executives can't ignore. When demand becomes strong enough to push ticket prices upward, the obvious question is whether the people creating the atmosphere can still afford to be part of it. Some fans have reportedly sacrificed other expenses or traveled long distances for these matches, and that creates a complicated debate. Is higher pricing simply the market responding to extraordinary demand, or does it risk shutting out the very supporters who created that demand in the first place? That question was already beginning to follow Eala wherever she went, and Cincinnati was about to put it under an even brighter spotlight. The biggest question now isn't whether Eala can attract attention. She already has. Cincinnati proved that her supporters are willing to travel, spend, and fill stadiums before the first point is even played. And the next stage could be even bigger. With the US Open and other major tournaments ahead, organizers now have another reason to watch her closely. Her impact isn't just about tickets. It's merchandise, sponsorships, social media, and bringing new fans into tennis. Eala has said she hopes the Filipino community's support helps grow the sport and gives people something to celebrate. At just 21, she's already changing the conversation around women's tennis. Cincinnati may have started with a ticket frenzy, but it could become the moment everyone realized the Eala effect was much bigger than a single tournament.